In the concluding verse of Genesis 10, we are told that these are the descendants of Shem according to their families and languages, by their lands and nations. In the next chapter, the narrative of the Tower of Babel, the text tells us in Genesis 11:1 that Vayehi kol haaretz safa. Now the entire earth was of one language and uniform words. This verse here talks about language. Each nation is speaking its own language. Look at verse 6. Vayome Adonai enham echad vesafa. And the Lord said, Lo, they are one people and they all have one language. What we should know is that in biblical Hebrew, there are no synonyms, which means that two words cannot mean the same thing. One word can mean two things, but two words cannot mean the same thing. In chapters 10 verses 31, it says each one according to their families and languages, which is Lashon. The word Lashon is used there. In chapters 11 verses 1 and 6, the word translated there as language is not Lashon, but Safa. Genesis 11:1 reads, Vayehi kol haaretz safa. Now the entire earth was of one language. Verses 6 says, Vayome Adonai hen am echad vesafa. And the Lord said, Lo, they are one people and they all have one language. Lashon is used in Genesis 10:1 and chapters 11, Safa is used. What is the difference between these two words that the English translates as language? What is the difference between Lashon and Safa? Lashon doesn't only mean language, but also tongue. Your tongue is found inside of you. The word Safa comes from the word Savtayim, which means lips. Where are your lips? On the outside. So there are two different languages that are being spoken over here. The first language in Genesis 10 is the Lashon, that which defines the inner dimension of a person, because your tongue is inside of you, what we may call your mother tongue. The language you use to express yourself in the most exact way possible, that is your Lashon. In Genesis 10, each nation went out and established their own Lashon. Safa is what comes from your lips, Saftayim. It's not revealing the inner dimension of who you are, but rather a means of communication to everyone who do not speak the same Lashon. It means there was an international language, Safa, that everyone spoke. Today, that will be English, a language that made them intercommunicate with each other, a universal language, that is Safa. So in Genesis 11:7, come, let us descend and confuse their language, that is Safa, the language that made them intercommunicate with each other, so that one will not understand the language of his companion, meaning the language that made them intercommunicate with each other, which is the Safa. They still had their Lashon, but it was their Safa that was confused.